welcome to Scissor Snack Sandwich. Today I have a really quick video for you on 2-4 Club. 2-4 Club is what they're calling a re-lending platform. It's pretty interesting. I have a flowchart to explain to you how this thing works, but taking a quick look at this, basically it's live on Plasma right now. You can supply USDT or AAVE USDT, and you're going to get around 28% currently, and now this is, as you can see, broken down into your AAVE rate as well as this relending APY rate, and as well as the Plasma extra bonuses on protocols that is currently live. So you can consider that, but let's take a look at how this thing works. But before I get onto the flowchart, I will suggest you to read the docs in full as much as possible. I'm not going to go into every little detail inside these docs. I'm going to give you an overview to kind of understand. And if you really want to go inside and check every little thing, every little liquidation risk and LTV risks and all this kind of stuff, you can kind of check that out. As usual, I always suggest you to read the docs in full yourself and confirm what I'm saying, or you can go to their Telegram and ask some more questions. So let's swing over to the flowchart. So here we have a dollar bill. He's got a big bag of USDT and he wants to put it to work. So normally he would just go to AAVE because it's quote unquote safe, right? And he would put his USDT into AAVE and earn whatever that interest rate is. I just put 5%, but usually it's around 3 to 5 or something like this, right? So, and he's cozy and he's comfortable, right? But say he wants to get a little bit more. Because he's deposited in AAVE, we have to say that like he could, if he wanted to borrow another 80 USDT or some other assets on AAVE, like 80 USDC or $80 worth of ETH or whatever he wants to. So he has some borrow ability, but let's say he hasn't used it, okay? So then he goes to 2-4-6 Club and he's like, hey, I want to earn some extra APY on my my USDC or my USDT, right? So then he can deposit either his USDT directly into to this 2-4-6 Club, or he can deposit his AUSD, which is his share token for his deposit into the 2-4-6 Club. If he deposits his USDT, then they will just mint the AUSD for him, right? Now, along comes an arbitrager. This is another user, another person who's like plugged in and who's constantly monitoring things, and he's not so passive like Dollar Bill. So he's got some USDT as well, okay? So what does he do is he goes and he checks all of these other lending platforms on the chain, right? So let's say there's Morpho, Silo, and Euler, and they all have different APYs on lending. So let's say there are some Morpho markets or some isolated Silo markets or even some isolated Euler markets that have higher interest rate than what it costs to borrow on AAVE, right? So he could borrow, he could deposit his 100 USDT into one of these whitelisted lending markets, right? And then he would have a kind of collateral, right? So he would do this through the 2-4-6 Club. Okay, so he would come to the 2-4-6 Club, give it the USDT, and then that 2-4-6 Club would put it into Morpho for him, right? Then he could borrow 80 USDC or USDT from AAVE. That 80 USDT, that is actually Dollar Bill's borrow capacity. So he's going to borrow on behalf of Dollar Bill. So the borrow rate on AAVE is going to be roughly around 5. It's going to be a little bit more. If Dollar Bill's getting paid 5, then the borrow rate's going to be around 6 or 7, right? Depending, like there's a little spread in there, right? So he would borrow from AAVE. So let's say he borrows $80 from AAVE, and then he deposit that into Morpho and get 10% on $80. So he's borrowing. He's going to pay whatever that's it. Let's say the borrow rate is 5%, and he's getting paid 10% on that $80, right? Now you got to keep in mind that it's not a closed system with 2 people. There are many people. So here we have Grandma. Let's say Grandma has $1 million and she put that into the 2-4-6 Club. She delegated her borrowing ability to 2-4-6 Club. And again, she's passive. She doesn't want to do looping and stuff like this, or borrowing or arbitraging. And so she just deposits it. And so now a borrow ability has gone up significantly, right? Obviously, this AAVE market via 246 can borrow a lot more than $80, right? So now he can borrow again because he has that $80 put in here. So he could borrow maybe another 55 or what have you. The LTV, the ratio for AAVE is 80% on stable coins or so, right? So as you can see, he's deposited into $100 into Morpho, and he's earning 10% on that. Then he's borrowed $80 from AAVE at maybe, let's say, 5% and put that into Morpho, earning 10%. And then he borrowed another, because now he's got another $80 worth of Morpho position. So he can borrow again and deposit that. So he can loop this up, right? Now, the system allows for flash loans, and he could flash loan this up and lever it up like 10 times. So loop this with a flash loan. So it's like just do it again and again and again, but it uses a flash loan, so you don't have to take each step one by one. I hope this makes sense. Okay, so some of the things that make this 246 club different, or how does dollar bill and Grandma here benefit from the looping actions of this arbitrageur? Well, on AAVE it has its own interest rate on the 246 club as well as the AAVE, because he's borrowing from AAVE, so he has to pay the AAVE, right? But he also has to pay a 246 curve as well, because he's borrowing via 246. So the 246 has its own utilization curve. So AAVE has a curve that looks like this. So as more people borrow from the AAVE market, then the interest rate goes up, and then once it gets to whatever it is, 80% or 85% utilization, it starts ramping up very quickly, right? But then inside this 246 club, he also has to pay, it has its own interest rate curve, its own hockey stick style curve. Now, each collateral has an increase on that curve. So there's the global, which is like just the amount to borrow this USDT from AAVE via 246 club. It has its own curve, but each collateral might be riskier than the other collaterals, so that it'll increase that. It has like a set increase to increase that amount. So if he's borrowing, if the current global 246 interest rate is around 50%, then it'll be a little bit more expensive if he uses a higher risk collateral. So he's depositing all of those assets into the higher risk collateral market. There are also soft cap increase. So each individual market has its own capacity. So the 246 will not allow 100% of all of the USDT borrowable to be sent to a single place, right? But they have these soft caps where they will allow it to, if say like only 20% of all of the 1 million and 100 USDT is sent to Morpho, then you will just pay this collateral specific increase. But if something like 80% or that soft cap is crossed, then there will be another further increase in that hockey stick. So then it'll go up even farther, because they're trying to reduce the risk of all of the borrowing from AAVE via the 246 going to the same place, right? So moving on, so there are some other risk controls here. So there is right now the 246 only allows for CDP in kind, so you can't like borrow Tether versus ETH or WBTC or any other asset. It's got to be like dollars for dollars or dollars, right? So USDT as collateral, and can borrow USDT from AAVE or USDC, this kind of stuff, like pegged assets and so forth. Okay, the system has its own utilization of borrow total, so it kind of calculates its interest rates and stuff like that on its own utilization. So the 246 club has its own borrowable total. So like how much can borrow? Like if there's only dollar bill, the total borrow is 80 USDT, right? So if 79 then it's going to be like 99% utilization. So that's where this curve comes in, right? So this curve is not based on AAVE's curve. It's based on the utilization of the total amount borrowable. I hope this makes sense. The ARB collateral, individual soft and hard caps. So these different collaterals, they all have their own some have their own hard caps, and then some have soft caps. So if it's a higher risk thing, it's probably going to have its hard cap. And then if it's a lower risk, it's going to have a soft cap. So the soft cap is, again, it just increases the interest rate if that soft cap is crossed, but it can be crossed. Okay, so I hope this has been useful and interesting. As always, check it out, go ask some more questions, learn a little bit more, and I hope this is useful. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.